Emma's hands trembled as she stared at the bank statement. The inheritance from their father, her last connection to him, had vanished while she was locked away in the psychiatric facility. Her sister Catherine had emptied the account without a word, leaving Emma with nothing but therapy bills and a hollowed-out trust. 3 weeks of silence followed, until Emma's phone lit up at 2 a.m. with Catherine's name, her voice breaking through sobs about a terrible mistake and begging for forgiveness. What devastating consequence had finally brought her sister to her knees, and would Emma's wounded heart find the strength to listen? If this story touched your heart, please comment below with your thoughts, like and subscribe to our channel, and share any similar experiences you've had with family betrayal and the difficult path to forgiveness. Emma stood beside Catherine in the cemetery, rain pattering against their black umbrellas. The priest's words faded into the background as Emma stared at their father's casket being lowered into the ground. She felt Catherine's hand squeeze hers, a rare gesture of solidarity between the sisters who had grown increasingly distant over the years. "He's really gone," Emma whispered, her voice catching. Catherine nodded, her expression composed despite the tears trickling down her cheeks. At least he's not suffering anymore. Their father, Richard Montgomery, had battled pancreatic cancer for 18 months before finally succumbing. A self-made real estate developer worth millions, he had built an empire from nothing, a fact he never let his daughters forget. After the burial, they gathered at the family lawyer's office. Mr. Winters, who had served as Richard's attorney for over 30 years, looked solemnly at the sisters across his mahogany desk. Richard was very specific about his wishes. He began, adjusting his glasses. The estate is to be divided equally between his 2 daughters, approximately $2 million each, plus the vacation property in Sedona to be shared jointly. Emma felt Catherine stiffen beside her. She knew her sister had expected more. Catherine had been the one running their father's office for the past 5 years, while Emma pursued her career as a therapist. Additionally, Mr. Winters continued, the family home goes to Emma. What? Catherine's voice cut through the room. That doesn't make sense. I'm the one who's been taking care of Dad. I'm the one who put my life on hold. Mr. Winters looked uncomfortable. Richard was quite clear. He believed Emma would preserve the home as it is. He worried you might sell it, Catherine. Catherine's face flushed. Of course I'd sell it. It's worth nearly $3 million. Why would anyone keep an empty mansion? Emma touched her sister's arm. Kath, we can talk about this. Maybe don't. Catherine pulled away. Don't pretend you understand. You got to live your life in the city while I was stuck here. And now you get the house too? The drive back to their father's mansion, now Emma's mansion, was silent. Emma watched her sister's profile, noting the tight jaw and white knuckles on the steering wheel. They had never been close, but their father's death seemed to be widening the gulf between them. That night, Catherine found Emma sitting in their father's study holding his favorite paperweight, a glass orb with a preserved monarch butterfly inside. You know I deserved more, Catherine said from the doorway, arms crossed. I was there every day. Through the chemo, the radiation, everything. Where were you? Emma set down the paperweight. I came whenever I could. My practice, your practice. Catherine scoffed. Dad never understood why you'd waste your intelligence counseling other people's problems when you could have joined the business. That's not fair, Emma said quietly. He supported my choice eventually. Did he? Or did he just stop arguing with you because he knew you'd fall apart like you always do? The words were sharp, deliberate. Emma felt her chest tighten, the familiar precursor to an anxiety attack. I don't want to fight, Kath. We're both grieving. Grieving differently, apparently. Catherine muttered. I'll be in the guest room. I have to be at the office early to explain to Dad's employees that nothing changes even though he's gone. 2 weeks later, Emma found herself having panic attacks daily. The weight of managing her father's estate, the massive house, and her strained relationship with Catherine while maintaining her therapy practice had become overwhelming. When she dropped a mug in the kitchen and found herself unable to breathe, sobbing on the floor for nearly an hour, she knew she needed help. Catherine found her there, still trembling. This is exactly what Dad worried about, Catherine said, helping Emma to her feet with surprising gentleness. You can't handle pressure? Never could. I need help, Kath, Emma admitted, hating the weakness in her voice. I'm thinking about intensive therapy. There's a place in Vermont. Go, Catherine said, her voice softening slightly. I'll handle things here. The estate, the house, everything. Just get better, Em. For a moment, Emma saw a glimpse of the sister she'd been close to as a child, before competition for their father's approval had driven them apart. She felt a rush of gratitude. Thank you, she whispered. I'll only be gone a month or two. Catherine nodded, already pulling out her phone. I'll have my assistant make the arrangements. You'll need to sign some paperwork so I can manage your affairs while you're away. Just a formality. Emma didn't see the calculating look that crossed Catherine's face as she turned away. Everything will be taken care of, Catherine promised. You just focus on getting well. Emma believed her. The Lakeside Wellness Center sat nestled among pine trees on the shores of Lake Champlain, its Victorian architecture belying the modern therapeutic approaches practiced within. Emma checked in on a crisp autumn morning, suitcase in hand, Catherine standing beside her at the reception desk. Ms. Montgomery, we're so pleased to have you join us, said Dr. Sharma, the center's director. Her warm smile put Emma at ease. We've prepared everything according to your preferences. Thank you, Emma said, feeling a flicker of hope for the first time in weeks. She turned to Catherine. I guess this is it. Catherine surprised her with a hug. Get better, Em. Don't worry about anything back home. As Dr. Sharma guided Emma toward the residential wing, she glanced back to see Catherine already on her phone, expression shifting to something harder, more determined. Your sister seems supportive, Dr. Sharma commented. We've had our differences, Emma replied. But she's stepped up since Dad died. Emma's first week at Lakeside was brutal. Without her usual coping mechanisms and distractions, she was forced to confront the anxiety that had plagued her since childhood. Sessions with her assigned therapist, Dr. Mason, often left her emotionally drained. Your relationship with your father seems complicated, Dr. Mason observed during their third session. Emma twisted the tissue in her hands. He had high expectations. Catherine met them. I didn't. Or at least, not in ways he valued. And how did that make you feel toward Catherine? Resentful sometimes, Emma admitted. But mostly toward myself. I knew she was sacrificing her own dreams to be what he wanted. Dr. Mason leaned forward. Have you considered that Catherine might resent you for pursuing your own path? The question hit Emma like a physical blow. Of course Catherine resented her. How had she missed something so obvious? As treatment progressed, Emma had to surrender her phone and laptop, standard protocol to ensure patients focused on recovery. Her only contact with the outside world came through weekly scheduled calls, which Catherine often missed or cut short. Citing meetings, the Montgomery Group needs me, she explained during one brief conversation. Dad's investors are nervous. Is everything okay with the inheritance? Emma asked, a vague uneasiness settling over her. Everything's fine, Catherine assured her. I've got it all under control. Just focus on getting better. During her 6th week at Lakeside, Emma had a breakthrough in group therapy. The topic was familial obligations versus self-care. I've spent my life trying not to be a burden, she confessed to the circle of patients. My anxiety made me the fragile one, and I've been compensating ever since, becoming a therapist to prove I can help others, even if I can't always help myself. Dr. Sharma, who was leading the group, nodded encouragingly. And how has that affected your relationship with Catherine? Emma considered this. I've been trying to prove I'm not broken, while she's been trying to prove she's indispensable. We've been competing for validation from a man who's no longer here. That night, Emma called Catherine from the center's office phone, eager to share her insight. The call went to voicemail. Kath, it's me, she said after the beep. I've been doing a lot of thinking about us, about Dad. I'd really like to talk. Call me back during visiting hours. Catherine never called back. When Emma tried again the following week, Catherine's assistant answered. Ms. Montgomery is in meetings all day. Can I take a message? As Emma's discharge date approached, she felt stronger than she had in years. The persistent anxiety hadn't disappeared, but she'd developed tools to manage it. More importantly, she'd gained perspective on her family dynamics and was determined to rebuild her relationship with Catherine on healthier terms. 2 days before her scheduled departure, Emma was called to Dr. Sharma's office. The director sat behind her desk, concern evident in her expression. Emma, your financial advisor has been trying to reach you. He says it's urgent. A cold knot formed in Emma's stomach. Did he say what it's about? Dr. Sharma shook her head. Just that there's been activity on your accounts that requires your immediate attention. I've authorized an exception to our communication policy. She gestured to the phone on her desk. With trembling fingers, Emma dialed Michael Reed, who had managed her finances for years. Emma, thank God, he said when he heard her voice. I've been trying to reach you for days. There's been a large withdrawal from your inheritance account. How large? Emma asked, though she already suspected the answer. All of it, Michael replied grimly. The entire $2 million. The transfer was authorized with your power of attorney. Signature. I assumed you knew until I couldn't reach you to confirm. The room seemed to tilt around Emma. Catherine, she whispered. Yes, your sister processed the paperwork. Emma, I'm so sorry. I should have tried harder to reach you directly. Emma hung up, numb with shock. Dr. Sharma's voice seemed to come from far away. Emma? What's happened? I need to leave tomorrow, Emma said, her voice hollow. My sister has taken everything. The morning ritual at Lakeside Wellness Center had become Emma's anchor. Wake at 6, meditation at 6:30, breakfast at 7, followed by a walk along the lakeshore before the day's therapy sessions began. These predictable rhythms had helped rebuild her sense of stability during the darkest weeks. You're making remarkable progress, Dr. Mason told her during their session in her 4th week. They sat in comfortable chairs facing Lake Champlain, the water glittering under the autumn sun. Your anxiety responses are significantly reduced. Emma nodded, watching a pair of loons glide across the water. I feel more centered, like I'm reclaiming parts of myself. Tell me about those parts, Dr. Mason prompted. Emma considered the question. I've spent so long defining myself in relation to my father and Catherine, the dutiful daughter who disappointed him by not joining the bow business. The unstable sister who needed protection. She paused. But that's not who I am. That's who they decided I was. Dr. Mason smiled. That's a powerful realization. As November turned to December, Emma found herself opening up in group therapy about her complicated relationship with her father. He wasn't cruel, she explained to the circle of patients. Just conditional. His love came with expectations. And did your sister meet those expectations? Asked Tara, another patient dealing with family trauma. Perfectly, Emma sighed. She became his right hand. I became the family disappointment. Yet he left you equal inheritances, Dr. Sharma observed. What does that tell you? The question lingered with Emma for days. During art therapy, she painted a portrait of her father, not the imposing businessman everyone knew, but the rare glimpses of softness she remembered. Him teaching her to ride a bike, comforting her after nightmares, proudly attending her college graduation despite his disapproval of her psychology major. He did love me, she realized, watching the portrait dry, in his own way. By her 6th week, Emma had begun helping other patients. Her therapist background emerged naturally as she listened to others' struggles, offering insights that sometimes surprised even the staff. You've got a gift, remarked Hector, an older man recovering from addiction. You see people clearly, everyone, except my own family, Emma replied with a sad smile. The isolation from the outside world, initially jarring, had become strangely liberating. Without constant digital connections, Emma rediscovered simple pleasures, reading by the fireplace, stargazing from the center's observatory, playing piano in the recreation room. One evening in her 7th week, Emma played Chopin as snow fell outside. Dr. Sharma paused in the doorway to listen. That's beautiful, she said when Emma finished. I didn't know you played. Since childhood. It was the one thing my father encouraged that wasn't business-related. Emma's fingers trailed over the keys. I stopped after college, too busy building. My practice. Will you play again when you go home? Home. The word triggered a complex wave of emotions. I'm not sure where home is anymore, Emma admitted. The next morning, during their session, Dr. Mason asked about her discharge plans. I've been avoiding thinking about it, Emma confessed. Going back means facing Catherine, the estate, all the unresolved issues. What would help you feel prepared? Emma thought for a moment. Clarity. About what I want, not what others expect. They spent the next 2 weeks establishing boundaries and rehearsing difficult conversations. Emma role-played confrontations with Catherine, practiced asserting her needs without apologizing, and developed strategies for managing anxiety triggers. Remember, Dr. Mason emphasized during their final scheduled session, recovery isn't linear. There will be setbacks. The difference is now you have tools to handle them. The night before her planned discharge, Emma sat on her bed packing her suitcase, a sense of cautious optimism warming her chest. She had faced her demons here. The self-doubt, the need for approval, the patterns of avoidance that had characterized her life. She wasn't cured, but she was stronger, clearer about who she was and what she deserved. She carefully packed the journal Dr. Mason had given her, now filled with insights and strategies. Next came the watercolor of Lake Champlain she'd painted in art therapy, and the small carved wooden fox Hector had made for her. Smart and adaptable, he'd said. Just like you. Emma looked around the simple room that had been her sanctuary for nearly 2 months. She would miss the peace here, the community of people who understood that healing wasn't weakness, but the hardest kind of strength. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Dr. Sharma stood in the doorway, her expression grave. Emma, could you come to my office? There's a call you need to take. The familiar knot of anxiety tightened in Emma's stomach, but she took a deep breath, using the grounding technique she'd practiced countless times. 5 things she could see: the wooden desk, the oriental rug, Dr. Sharma's concerned eyes, the falling snow outside the window, the phone waiting on the desk. Your financial advisor, Dr. Sharma explained gently. He says it's urgent. As Emma reached for the phone, she realized her hands were steady. Whatever was coming, she would face it with the strength she'd built here. She couldn't have known that everything was about to change again, that all her careful preparation would be tested in ways she never imagined. As she lifted the receiver, the last peaceful moments of her recovery slipped away. Emma's Uber pulled up to her childhood home. Her home now, technically, just after noon the following day. The grand Tudor-style mansion looked exactly as she had left it, pristine and imposing against the winter sky. Emma paid the driver and stood on the circular driveway, her small suitcase beside her, gathering her courage. She had spent the 3-hour drive from Vermont rehearsing what she would say to Catherine, cycling between righteous anger and numb disbelief. Michael Reed had explained everything, how Catherine had used the power of attorney Emma had signed to transfer the entire inheritance, all $2 million, into an account Emma had no access to. Legally, it's complicated, Michael had told her. You did sign the authorization, but there's a strong case for coercion or misrepresentation. Emma took a deep breath and walked up the steps to the front door. Her key still worked. Small mercies. The house was silent, the air stale. Catherine hadn't been staying here then. Emma went directly to her father's study, her study now, and called Catherine's cell. Emma, Catherine answered, sounding genuinely pleased. You're out. How are you feeling? The normalcy in her sister's voice made Emma's stomach turn. Where's my money, Catherine? A pause. What? My inheritance. The $2 million Dad left me that you transferred out of my account while I was in treatment. Emma's voice was steadier than she felt. Another longer pause. You're home. Good. We should discuss this in person. I'll be there in 20 minutes. True to her word, Catherine's Mercedes pulled into the driveway exactly 20 minutes later. Emma watched from the study window as her sister emerged, impeccably dressed in a charcoal pantsuit, her auburn hair, so like Emma's own, pulled back in a severe bun. Emma met her at the door. You look better, Catherine said, brushing past Emma into the foyer. The treatment center was worth it then. Don't, Emma said, closing the door. Don't pretend this is a normal homecoming. Where is my money? Catherine sighed and walked toward the study. It's complicated, Emma. Come sit down. Emma followed, a strange calm settling over her. This was the confrontation she had prepared for at Lakeside, though she'd never imagined the stakes would be so high. Catherine took their father's chair behind the desk, a power move Emma noted with detached interest. She remained standing. I had to make some decisions while you were away, Catherine began, her tone businesslike. The market was volatile, and your funds were just sitting there. So you decided to steal them. Emma's voice was flat. Catherine flinched. It wasn't stealing. I was protecting your interests. You've never had a head for finance, Emma. Dad knew that. Dad knew that, Emma repeated slowly. Is that why he left me half the estate? Because he thought I was financially incompetent? He felt guilty, Catherine said, a flash of the old resentment crossing her face, for not understanding your issues. The inheritance was his way of compensating. Emma laughed, a harsh sound that surprised them both. That's how you've justified this to yourself? That I didn't deserve it anyway? You don't understand the pressure I've been under, Catherine snapped. Running the company, handling the estate, dealing with the lawyers, all while you were off finding yourself at some luxury retreat. Luxury retreat? Emma's voice rose. I was in treatment for severe anxiety that I've struggled with my entire life. Treatment that I now can't pay for, by the way, because you took everything. Catherine had the grace to look uncomfortable. I can cover the treatment costs, and you still have the house. How generous of you, Emma said bitterly. Returning a fraction of what you stole. I didn't steal it, Catherine insisted, standing. Now, I invested it, for both of us. Both of us? Then where's my access? Where's my paperwork? Where's my consent? Catherine looked away. I needed to act quickly. There wasn't time to consult you, and you weren't in a state to make financial decisions. That's not your call to make. Emma slammed her hand on the desk, making Catherine jump. Where is the money now? I want it back. All of it. A tense silence filled the room. Catherine's expression shifted, hardened. No. The simple word hung between them. No? Emma repeated incredulously. The money is better in my hands. Catherine said coldly. You were always irresponsible with money. Dad would have wanted me to have it. Emma stared at her sister, seeing her clearly perhaps for the first time. The jealousy, the entitlement, the absolute certainty of her own superiority. It had always been there, hidden beneath sisterly concern. "This was never about protecting me," Emma said quietly. "You planned this from the moment Dad died. Maybe before." Catherine didn't deny it. "I deserved more. I was the one who stayed. I was the one who built the business with him. I was the one who took care of him when he was dying. And I'm the one you betrayed." Emma's voice broke. "Your own sister." "Oh, grow up, Emma," Catherine snapped. "This is business. Dad taught me to seize opportunities. That's all I did." Emma felt a strange calm descend. "I want you out of my house." "Excuse me? This is my house. Dad left it to me. You've made it abundantly clear we're no longer family, so you no longer have a place here. Get out." Catherine laughed, but there was uncertainty in her eyes. "You can't handle this place on your own. You can barely handle yourself. Watch me," Emma said, moving to the door and holding it open. "I'll expect your keys before you leave." Catherine gathered her purse, her composure cracking slightly. "You'll regret this. You need me." "No," Emma said with sudden clarity. "I really don't." She watched from the front steps as Catherine's car disappeared down the driveway, then went inside and locked the door. In the empty hallway, she finally let the tears come, not just for the money, but for the final death of whatever bond had once existed between them. The betrayal was absolute. Emma was alone. The mansion felt cavernous with just Emma rattling around inside it. Each night she found herself sleeping in different rooms, unable to settle. Her father's master suite remained untouched, a museum to a life now finished. Sometimes she'd stand in the doorway, looking at his reading glasses still perched on the nightstand, and wonder what he would think of what had happened between his daughters. By the end of her first week back, reality had set in. Emma sat at the kitchen island, spreadsheets and bills spread before her, calculating her financial situation. The house was hers free and clear, but the property taxes were astronomical. The utilities for the 8,000-square-foot home cost more each month than her previous apartment's rent. And then there were the maintenance costs, the housekeeper, the gardener. "I can't afford to live in my own house," she murmured to the empty kitchen. Her savings account held enough to cover a few months of expenses, but without her inheritance or income from her therapy practice, which she'd closed when entering treatment, she was headed for financial disaster. Emma made 3 difficult calls that day. First to the housekeeper and gardener, letting them go with as generous a severance as she could manage. Second, to a real estate agent to discuss listing options for the house. And third, to her former office manager about reopening her practice. "The thing is, Emma," Diane explained gently, "most of your clients have found other therapists. Starting over will take time. Time she didn't have." The next morning, Emma drove to a modest apartment complex on the other side of town. Unit 3B was available immediately. 1 bedroom, 1 bath, a combined living dining area with a kitchenette. The carpet was worn, the appliances outdated, but the rent was just within her budget. "I'll take it," she told the manager, signing the lease with a strange mix of defeat and relief. Moving day was quick. Emma took only what was truly hers. Clothes, books, her laptop, a few cherished photographs. She left behind the antiques, the artwork, the crystal and china that had been in the Montgomery family for generations. Those would be sold with the house. Her last act before locking up. The mansion was to take her father's butterfly paperweight from his desk. A small act of defiance, something Catherine couldn't touch. The apartment felt alien that first night. Emma sat cross-legged on the floor. She had no furniture yet. Eating, takeout and scanning job listings on her laptop. Her therapy license was still active, but building a client base would take months she couldn't afford. Medical office receptionist, she read aloud. Retail associate, administrative assistant. Jobs that would pay the bills but waste her education and experience. Emma's phone chimed with a text from Dr. Mason, checking in. "How's the transition going?" She stared at the message, unsure how to respond. How could she explain that while she felt mentally stronger than ever, her life had been dismantled? Taking it day by day, she finally replied. "The tools are helping, it wasn't a lie." The coping strategies she'd learned at Lakeside kept her from spiraling when the apartment's water heater failed on day 3, when the real estate agent called to say the market was slow for luxury properties, when she realized she couldn't afford to replace her aging car. 2 weeks after moving, Emma landed a job at a community mental health clinic. The pay was barely adequate, the caseload overwhelming, but it was in her field and offered health insurance. Small victories. Each morning, She placed her father's paperweight on her tiny kitchen table, a reminder of what she'd lost and what she still had. The butterfly preserved in glass, beautiful but static, frozen in time. Sometimes Emma felt the same way, suspended between her past life and an uncertain future. She heard nothing from Catherine. The silence was both a relief and a fresh wound. Confirmation that their relationship had been irreparably damaged. Emma drove past the Montgomery Group's offices occasionally, catching glimpses of her sister through the glass-fronted building, always impeccably dressed, seemingly untouched by what she'd done. How do you move forward after something like this? Emma asked during her weekly phone session with Dr. Mason. You're already doing it, came the gentle reply. Rebuilding takes time. Time passed in a blur of workdays, empty evenings, and restless nights. Emma found small ways to reclaim joy. A plant for her windowsill, a used piano keyboard from a thrift store, walks in the park near her apartment. The panic attacks still came sometimes, but less frequently, less intensely. One night in her third week at the clinic, Emma was assigned a new client, a teenage girl whose parents were going through a bitter divorce, using their daughter as a pawn. They both say they love me, the girl said, tears streaming down her face. But they're so focused on hurting each other that they don't see what it's doing to me. Emma felt a profound connection to the girl's pain. Sometimes the people who should love us the most are the ones who hurt us worst, she said gently. But that's about them, not you. Their choices don't define your worth. The words, spoken for her client's benefit, resonated within Emma herself. Catherine's betrayal wasn't a reflection of Emma's value or deservingness. It was a statement about Catherine. That night, Emma wrote in the journal Dr. Mason had given her, I am not defined by what was taken from me. I am defined by how I choose to rebuild. 3 weeks after the confrontation at the mansion, Emma's phone lit up at 2 a.m. Catherine's name flashed on the screen. Emma stared at it, heart pounding. Part of her wanted to ignore it, to protect herself from further hurt. But another part, the therapist, the sister, the human, knew that a call at this hour meant something significant had happened. She answered, holding her breath. Emma? Catherine's voice cracked. I've made a terrible mistake. I need your help. The diner sat on the edge of town, its neon sign buzzing weakly in the pre-dawn darkness. Emma arrived first, sliding into a booth by the window where she could watch the parking lot. The waitress brought coffee without being asked, sensing perhaps that this wasn't a social visit. Emma wrapped her hands around the mug, drawing warmth into her perpetually cold fingers. She'd barely slept after Catherine's call, her mind spinning with possibilities. What kind of mistake would drive her proud, self-sufficient sister to call in tears at 2 a.m.? What could possibly have happened that Catherine would turn to the person she had betrayed so completely? The headlights of Catherine's Mercedes swept across the window. Emma watched her sister park, then remain in the car for several long moments, as if gathering courage. When Catherine finally emerged, Emma barely recognized her. Gone was the sleek, polished executive. This Catherine wore jeans and a rumpled sweater, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. Even from a distance, Emma could see the dark circles under her eyes. The bell above the door jingled as Catherine entered. She spotted Emma immediately but hesitated before approaching, her usual confidence nowhere to be seen. Thank you for coming, Catherine said, sliding into the booth opposite Emma. Her voice was hoarse, as if she'd been crying for hours. Emma said nothing, taking in the details of her sister's appearance. Catherine's nails, usually perfectly manicured, were bitten to the quick. She'd lost weight, her cheekbones too pronounced in her pale face. You look terrible, Emma finally said, not unkindly. Catherine laughed, a hollow sound. I feel worse. She reached for Emma's coffee, took a sip, and grimaced. God, that's awful. It's not meant to be good, Emma replied. It's meant to be coffee. She signaled the waitress for another cup, a small kindness she wasn't sure Catherine deserved. They sat in uncomfortable silence until the coffee arrived. Catherine added cream and sugar with shaking hands, spilling some on the table. You're not sleeping, Emma observed, her therapist's instincts kicking in despite herself. No. Catherine stared into her cup. Not for weeks. Emma waited. She had prepared for this meeting, rehearsing what she would say, promising herself she wouldn't make it easy for Catherine. But the sight of her sister's obvious distress had thrown her off balance. I don't know where to start, Catherine finally said. The beginning would be traditional, Emma replied, keeping her tone neutral. Or you could start with where my money is. Catherine flinched. That's what I need to tell you about. She took a deep breath. I lost it, Emma. All of it. Yours and mine. Emma felt strangely calm, as if she'd been expecting this. How? I invested it. with someone I trusted. Catherine's voice caught. It was supposed to be a sure thing. There's no such thing as a sure thing in investing, Emma said quietly. Dad taught us that. I know. I knew better. Catherine pressed her palms against her eyes. I was greedy. I thought I could double the money quickly, make it up to you somehow. By stealing more of my money? Emma couldn't keep the edge from her voice. I wasn't thinking clearly. I was angry. At Dad for dying, at you for getting the house, at myself for being stuck running a company I never wanted. Catherine looked up, meeting Emma's gaze directly for the first time. But I never meant for this to happen. Emma studied, her sister's face looking for signs of manipulation or deceit. She saw only exhaustion and genuine despair. Tell me exactly what happened, she said. Catherine glanced around the nearly empty diner, then leaned forward, lowering her voice. Not here. Can we go somewhere more private? No, Emma said firmly. I'm not going anywhere with you until I understand what's going on. Catherine nodded, accepting the boundary. Okay, you're right. She took another sip of coffee, steadying herself. About 3 months ago, Jason Holloway, you remember him from college, reached out. He's a vice president at First Capital now. Emma vaguely recalled a charismatic business major Catherine had dated briefly. Go on. He told me about an investment opportunity. A tech startup with government contracts, pre-IPO, said they were looking for private investors, minimum buy-in $2 million. Catherine's words came faster now. He showed me projections, testimonials from other investors, documentation of the contracts. It all checked out. And you didn't think to consult an independent financial advisor? Emma asked. I had Michael review it, Catherine admitted. He advised caution, suggested diversifying rather than going all in, but the potential returns were huge and the window was closing. So you used my inheritance as your gambling stake. Emma kept her voice level with effort. I used both our inheritances, Catherine corrected quietly. 4 million total. It was supposed to triple within 6 months. And instead, Catherine's face crumpled. The company doesn't exist. The contracts were fabricated. Jason disappeared 2 weeks ago, along with money from dozens of other investors. A Ponzi scheme, Emma said. Catherine nodded miserably. The FBI is involved now. They say we might recover 10 cents on the dollar at best. And that could take years. Emma sat back, processing. So you're broke. Worse than broke, Catherine whispered. I borrowed against the company to cover some expenses when cash flow got tight. Now the board is asking questions. There's an audit scheduled for next week. Her voice broke. I could go to prison, Emma. The gravity of the situation settled over them. Emma thought of Catherine in a prison jumpsuit, stripped of her designer clothes and executive title. Despite everything, the image brought her no satisfaction. Why come to me? She asked finally. What do you expect me to do? Catherine looked down at her hands. I don't know. You've always been the one who fixes things, who understands people. I thought, she trailed off. You thought I'd forgive you? Help you cover this up? Emma shook her head in disbelief. After what you did to me? I don't deserve your help, Catherine admitted. I know that, but I didn't know where else to turn. The waitress approached, coffee pot in hand. Refill? Emma nodded, grateful for the interruption. As the waitress topped off their cups, she studied her sister's desperate expression and made a decision. I'll listen, she said after the waitress left. I'm not promising anything more, but I'll hear the whole story. Relief washed over Catherine's face. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, Emma warned. First, I need to know everything. Every detail. No more lies. Catherine nodded, wiping away a tear. Where should I start? With Jason Holloway, Emma said. Tell me exactly how this investment scheme worked. It started with a charity gala, Catherine explained, hunched over her third cup of coffee. Dawn had broken outside the diner windows, painting the parking lot in pale golden light. The Montgomery Group sponsors the Children's Hospital benefit. Every year, Jason was there representing First Capital. Emma nodded, remembering how their father had insisted on maintaining certain philanthropic traditions. Good for business, he'd always said. We caught up, reminisced about college days. He mentioned he'd been following my career, said he was impressed with how I'd stepped up after Dad died. Catherine's voice grew bitter. Looking back, he'd clearly done his research. Knew exactly which buttons to push. Flattery, Emma observed, the easiest way in, and I fell for it. Catherine agreed. He asked about you too. Seemed genuinely concerned when I mentioned you were in treatment. Emma felt a flicker of anger. Using my mental health as part of his con? A week later, he called me for lunch. Very casual, just former classmates reconnecting. Then a dinner the following week where he first mentioned quantum edge technologies. Catherine rubbed her temples. He was so careful, so patient. Never pushed too hard. Building trust, Emma said. Classic predatory tactic. Catherine looked up sharply. You sound like you've seen this before. I've counseled victims of financial abuse. The psychological patterns are similar to other forms of manipulation. Emma kept her tone professional, a defense against her conflicting emotions. What was the supposed product? Quantum encryption for government communications. Unbreakable, revolutionary, all the buzzwords. He said they had contracts with the Defense Department, but they were classified. Catherine shook her head at her own naivete. He could only show me redacted versions, which should have been a huge red flag. What about the company itself? Delaware registration, impressive website, LinkedIn profiles for key executives. I did basic due diligence, or thought I did. Catherine's hands trembled slightly as she reached for her cup. There was even a small office in a tech park outside the city. I visited once. Now I know it was just a temporary rental staged for potential investors. Emma took notes on a napkin, organizing the information. When did he ask for money? Not until our 5th meeting. He mentioned that early investors were seeing 40% returns already, said the investment window was closing, as they prepared for IPO. Catherine's expression hardened. Then the hook. He'd reserved a spot for me as a personal favor, but I'd need to decide quickly. Creating artificial scarcity, Emma murmured. So you used my inheritance. Catherine's face flushed with shame. I had already transferred it to my control. The plan was to invest both our funds, let it triple in value, then return your original amount plus growth. You'd never know what happened. Except it was never my choice to make that gamble, Emma pointed out. It wasn't yours to risk. I know that now, Catherine whispered. I convinced myself I was doing what Dad would have done, seizing an opportunity. But Dad would never have broken the first rule of investing. Never invest what you can't afford to lose, Emma quoted their father's frequent adage. Catherine nodded miserably. I signed the paperwork 3 months ago. Initial reports were glowing. Quarterly statements showing 20% growth, updates about new government contracts, even a small dividend payment to build confidence. How did you discover it was a scam? I didn't. Until it was too late. Catherine's voice cracked. 2 weeks ago, I got a call from another investor, a doctor Jason had brought in. He'd tried to withdraw some funds for a property purchase and couldn't reach anyone at Quantum Edge. Their office was cleared out, phone disconnected. Emma could picture the moment of realization, the floor dropping away beneath Catherine's carefully constructed world. Despite everything, she felt a pang of sympathy. I went to First Capital. Catherine continued. They claimed Jason had left the firm months ago, said they had no connection to Quantum Edge and no responsibility for his actions. And the FBI? I reported it the next day, along with several other investors. They told us Jason Holloway isn't even his real name. His actual identity is still unknown. Catherine looked up, her eyes hollow. They've frozen what assets they could find, but most of the money was moved offshore immediately. 26 investors, over $30 million gone. Emma sat back, processing the scale of the fraud. And the Montgomery Group? You mentioned borrowing against the company. Catherine's composure finally broke. Tears spilled down her cheeks as she covered her face with her hands. When the quarterly dividend was due from Quantum Edge, I had commitments I couldn't meet. Payroll, vendor contracts. I borrowed $200,000 from the company's operating account, planning to replace it with the dividend. Oh, Catherine, Emma whispered. I falsified some documents to cover it, Catherine admitted, her voice barely audible. The CFO noticed discrepancies and brought it to the board. They've ordered an audit. If they find out what I did, embezzlement, Emma said, the word hanging heavy between them. Catherine nodded, unable to speak. The waitress approached, eyeing Catherine's tears uncertainly. Everything okay here? Family matter, Emma explained with a tight smile. Could we get the check, please? When they were alone again, Emma leaned forward. Catherine, you need a lawyer. A good one, specializing in white-collar crime. I know. I've made an appointment with Harrison Brooks for tomorrow. Catherine named one of the city's most prominent defense attorneys. But I don't see how even he can fix this. The evidence is clear. I took the money. Yours and the company's. Emma studied her sister, seeing beyond the disheveled appearance to the desperation beneath. Catherine had always been the strong one, the competent one, the one who never showed weakness. Now she was shattered, all pretense stripped away. Why call me? Emma asked again. What did you think I could do? Catherine wiped her eyes with a napkin. Honestly, I don't know. I've lost everything. My reputation, possibly my freedom. The company Dad built. She looked up, her gaze direct despite her tears. But losing you, that's what I can't bear. Even though I know I deserve it. Emma felt her carefully constructed walls wavering. This was the sister she remembered from childhood. Vulnerable, honest, capable of genuine remorse. The audit, Emma said slowly. When exactly is it scheduled? Monday morning. 3 days from now. Emma nodded, thinking rapidly. And the FBI investigation? What stage is that at? Preliminary. They're still gathering evidence from all the victims. Catherine frowned. Why? Emma didn't answer directly. Do you have any documentation from Quantum Edge? Contracts, correspondence with Jason, anything? Everything's on my laptop. Why? What are you thinking? Emma pulled out her wallet and placed cash on the table for their coffee. I'm thinking we should continue this conversation somewhere private after all. She stood, decision made. Let's go to my apartment. Bring your laptop and every document related to this investment. Hope flickered across Catherine's face. You're going to help me? I haven't decided yet, Emma said truthfully. First, I need to understand exactly what we're dealing with. Then we'll see what options exist. As they walked to their cars, Catherine touched Emma's arm lightly. Thank you. For listening, at least. Emma looked at her sister, seeing both the foul woman who had betrayed her and the girl who had once protected her from schoolyard bullies. Don't thank me yet, she said. This may be beyond fixing. But as she drove home with Catherine following, Emma felt a familiar determination taking root. She had always been the family problem solver, the mediator, the one who could see patterns others missed. Now those skills might be needed more than ever, not just to save Catherine, but to recover what had been stolen from them both. Emma's apartment felt even smaller with Catherine in it. Her sister stood awkwardly in the center of the combined living dining area, taking in the secondhand furniture, the water stain on the ceiling, the single window overlooking the parking lot. This is where you've been living? Catherine asked, unable to mask her shock. This is what I could afford after you took my inheritance, Emma replied matter-of-factly. She cleared her breakfast dishes from the tiny table. Sit. Let me see what you brought. Catherine placed her laptop and a leather portfolio on the table. Everything's here. Emails, contracts, bank statements. She hesitated. Emma, Not yet. Emma cut her off. I need to focus on the facts first. For the next hour, Emma methodically reviewed the documents, creating a timeline of the investment scheme on a legal pad. Catherine answered questions, but otherwise remained silent, watching her sister work with a familiar intensity. Finally, Emma set down her pen. Okay, I think I understand the financial side now. She looked directly at Catherine. What I don't understand is you. Catherine shifted uncomfortably. What do you mean? You're smart, Catherine. Financially savvy. You worked with Dad for years, saw him evaluate countless deals. Emma tapped the fraudulent contract. This has red flags all over it. Yet you put everything into it? Not just your money, but mine too. That doesn't track with the sister I know. Catherine stared at her hands. I thought I was being shrewd. No, Emma shook her head. There's something deeper here. Something you're still not telling me. The silence stretched between them, weighted with unspoken truths. Outside, rain began to patter against the window. Why did you really take my inheritance? Emma pressed. The whole truth this time. Catherine's shoulders sagged. I was drowning, she whispered. The company was struggling more than anyone knew. Dad's illness had distracted him from some serious problems, market shifts, key clients defecting to competitors. The board was losing confidence in my leadership. So you needed a cash infusion, Emma surmised. Yes, but it was more than that. Catherine looked up, her eyes haunted. I was angry, Emma. So angry I could hardly breathe sometimes. At me? At everything. At Dad for dying. At the company for faltering despite my best efforts. Catherine's voice grew bitter. At you for escaping. For having options I never had. Emma frowned. What options? You were Dad's chosen successor. The golden child. A harsh laugh escaped Catherine. Is that what you thought? That I wanted any of this? Didn't you? I wanted to be an architect, Catherine said quietly. I had an acceptance letter from Rhode Island School of Design. Full scholarship. Emma stared at her sister, speechless. This was entirely new information. Dad found the letter, Catherine continued. He tore it up in front of me, said the Montgomery. Legacy was my responsibility, not some artistic indulgence. She mimicked their father's dismissive tone perfectly. You never told me, Emma said. What was the point? You were already at college, studying what you wanted. Someone had to step up after Mom died. Resentment flickered across Catherine's face. You got his blessing to pursue your dreams. I got his expectations. Emma thought back to their childhood, recalibrating memories through this new lens. Catherine's detailed building block structures. The elaborate dollhouse renovations. The sketches of buildings she'd once found in Catherine's room. I had no idea, she said softly. Of course you didn't. You were dealing with your anxiety, your panic attacks. Dad and I shielded you from everything difficult. Catherine's voice held no accusation, just tired resignation. That became the pattern. Protect Emma. Don't burden Emma. So when he died, I was trapped in a life I never chose, running a company I resented, watching you inherit equal shares despite never contributing. Catherine met Emma's gaze directly. I'm not proud of it, but yes, I took your inheritance partly out of anger. It felt like balancing the scales. Emma absorbed this, feeling the ground shift beneath her understanding of their family dynamic. And the investment scheme? A desperate gamble. If it worked, I could have saved the company and repaid you without anyone knowing. If it failed, Catherine gestured helplessly at her current situation. You'd lose everything, Emma finished for her. On some level, maybe that's what I wanted, Catherine admitted, the realization seeming to surprise even her. To blow it all up, force a change I couldn't make voluntarily. Emma recognized the psychology, self-sabotage as an escape mechanism. She'd seen it in clients, the unconscious destruction of what felt like a prison. You were Dad's favorite, Catherine said suddenly. You know that, right? Emma laughed in disbelief. That's absurd. I was the disappointment, the fragile one who couldn't join the family business. You were the one he worried about, thought about, talked about constantly. Catherine's words held decades of pain. Every decision was about protecting Emma, providing for Emma, making sure Emma would be okay. You got his concern, I just got his expectations. That's not love, Catherine. That's anxiety. Worry isn't the same as favor. Isn't it? He let you go, Emma. He let you build your own life. He forced me to build his. The rain intensified outside, a steady drumming against the window. Emma thought of all the years they'd spent misinterpreting each other, seeing the same family, through completely different lenses. Why tell me all this now? She asked finally. Catherine sighed. Because I have nothing left to hide behind. No success, no money, no illusions about my perfect life. She looked around the small apartment, and because sitting here, seeing how you've survived despite what I did to you, it's made me realize something. What's that? You're stronger than I ever gave you credit for. Catherine's voice softened, maybe stronger than I am. Emma felt an unexpected surge of emotion. For years, she'd measured herself against Catherine's apparent perfection, always coming up short. The idea that her sister might envy her resilience was entirely new. I'm not helping you because of some obligation, Emma said clearly, or because I've forgiven you. I haven't decided about that yet. I understand. Catherine nodded. I'm helping you because you're in trouble, and because untangling this mess might be the only way to recover any of our inheritance. Emma fixed her sister with a steady gaze. But there's one condition. Anything, Catherine said quickly. Complete honesty from now on. I need to know I'm getting the whole truth, not just the parts you think will serve your purpose. Emma leaned forward. No more manipulation. No more half-truths. If I catch you in one more lie, I walk away for good. Catherine held her gaze. I promise. Emma wasn't sure she believed her sister, but she saw something new in Catherine's eyes. Vulnerability. Yes, but also respect. For perhaps the first time, Catherine was seeing her as an equal, not as someone to be managed or protected. Okay, Emma said, turning back to her notes. Let's start with Jason Holloway. Tell me everything you remember about him. Habits, preferences, any personal details he might have shared. The real person behind the fake name. As Catherine began to speak, Emma listened intently, setting aside her hurt and anger to focus on the problem at hand. There would be time later to process the revelations about their family, to decide whether forgiveness was possible. For now, there was work to do. The sisters bent their heads together over the documents, united for the moment by a common enemy and the faint hope of recovery. By late afternoon, Emma's tiny kitchen table had disappeared beneath printouts, sticky notes, and takeout containers. They'd ordered Chinese food around noon, but neither had eaten much, too engrossed in piecing together the complex fraud that had ensnared Catherine and dozens of others. So Jason, or whatever his name is, targeted affluent professionals with just enough financial knowledge to seem sophisticated, but not enough to spot the inconsistencies in his story, Emma summarized, pinning another note to the makeshift timeline they'd created on her wall. Catherine nodded, scrolling through emails on her laptop. Most of us had recent windfalls, inheritances, divorce settlements, business sales, people with new money they weren't emotionally attached to yet, vulnerable targets, Emma mused. Did you ever meet any of the other investors? A few at events Jason organized, cocktail parties at expensive venues, presentations with catered meals. He was careful to make everything seem exclusive, prestigious. Emma added this to her notes, creating a false sense of community, reinforcing the illusion that you were all part of something special. Catherine watched her sister work, impressed. Despite herself, Emma had transformed from the anxious, uncertain woman Catherine remembered into someone methodical and perceptive, breaking down the complex scheme with remarkable clarity. "You're good at this," Catherine observed. Emma shrugged. Patterns of manipulation aren't so different whether it's emotional or financial. The underlying psychology is similar. A notification chimed on Catherine's phone. She checked it, her face paling. "What is it?" Emma asked. "Email from Harrison Brooks's office confirming our appointment tomorrow." Catherine set the phone down. With a shaking hand, "I still don't see how legal counsel helps. The audit will find the missing funds. The paper trail leads directly to me." Emma studied her sister, considering their limited options. "What exactly are you facing if the board discovers what you did?" "Criminal charges for embezzlement. Civil lawsuits from the company and shareholders." Catherine ran a hand through her disheveled hair. "My career would be over. I could serve time. But if you come forward voluntarily, admit what happened before the audit, it might mitigate the consequences slightly, but I'd still face serious repercussions." Catherine looked up, her expression bleak. "I've accepted that my life as I knew it is over, Emma. I just don't want to go to prison." The raw fear in her sister's voice stirred Emma's compassion, despite her lingering anger. "There might be another approach," she said slowly. "If we focus on recovering the stolen money rather than hiding your actions." "How?" The FBI said. "The FBI is pursuing Jason and his accomplices, but they're dealing with dozens of cases. We have specific information about our situation." Emma tapped the documents spread before them. "I think we need to work both angles. Legal protection for you and aggressive pursuit of the stolen funds." Catherine nodded, then hesitated. "There's something else. Something I need to ask you." She took a deep breath. "It's about the audit." Emma tensed, sensing what was coming. "Go on." "If I could show that the money I took from the company was part of an authorized transaction, a loan or a consulting fee, it would buy me time. Time to try to recover the investment money before facing any consequences." "And how would you show that?" Emma asked, though she already knew the answer. Catherine met her gaze directly. "I need you to sign backdated documents stating you were consulting for the Montgomery Group. The $200,000 would appear to be your fee." The request hung in the air between them. Emma stared at her sister, momentarily speechless. "You want me to commit fraud," she finally said. "To lie, in writing, to save you from the consequences of your actions." "I know how it sounds," Catherine said quickly. "But it wouldn't be permanent. Just a stopgap until we can recover the funds." "And if we can't recover the funds?" Emma asked. "Then I'm complicit in your crime. Potentially facing charges myself." Catherine didn't deny it. "I wouldn't ask if I saw any other way." Emma stood abruptly, needing distance. She walked to the window, watching raindrops trace patterns on the glass. Part of her wanted to throw Catherine out, to wash her hands of the whole sordid mess. Another part recognized the desperation that had driven her sister to this point. "What happens to the company if the audit reveals what you did?" she asked without turning around. "The board would remove me immediately. There would be a public scandal. The stock would plummet." Catherine's voice grew hollow. "Everything Dad built would be tainted." Emma thought of their father, his ambition, his drive, his complicated legacy. Whatever his flaws, Richard Montgomery had created something meaningful, employed hundreds of people, contributed to the community. "And if I agree to this deception," she asked, "what then?" "I would have a fighting chance to make things right," Catherine said. "To recover the stolen funds before irreparable damage is done. To preserve Dad's legacy." Emma turned, her expression hardened. "Dad's legacy isn't just the company, Catherine. It's us, his daughters, what we stand for, what we're willing to do." Catherine flinched as if struck. "I know, and I've already failed that legacy. I'm just trying to limit the damage. By asking me to compromise my integrity too?" Emma shook her head. "That's not a solution. That's spreading the corruption. Then what do you suggest?" Catherine's voice rose in frustration. "I have 3 days before everything collapses." Emma returned to the table, scanning their notes. An idea had been forming as they worked, a risky but potentially viable path forward. "What if," she said carefully, "instead of hiding what happened, we use it as leverage to catch Jason and recover the money?" Catherine frowned. "What do you mean? I'm not signing false documents. Emma stated firmly. But I might have another. Way to buy you time and help us track down Jason. She met her sister's gaze. It would require absolute transparency with the FBI, though. Coming clean about everything. Hope and fear warred in Catherine's expression. You think they'd work? With me, even though I took your money? That's a separate issue between us, Emma said. But if we approach them with a plan to catch Jason using your connection, they might be willing to delay notifying the company while the operation is underway. Catherine considered this, desperation gradually giving way to cautious interest. What kind of plan? Emma outlined her thoughts. A strategy that used Catherine's position as a known victim to draw Jason out, potentially recovering funds not just for them, but for all the victims. It's risky, she concluded, and it means admitting everything you did, but it keeps us on the right side of the law and gives us a chance to fix this the right way. Catherine was quiet for a long moment, weighing her limited options. Finally, she looked up. I need to think about this, about what I'm willing to risk. You have until tomorrow morning, Emma said, gathering her notes. Before your meeting with the lawyer. That's when you need to decide. Do you want to compound one mistake with another, or do you want to try to make this right? As darkness fell, outside the small apartment, the sisters sat in silence, the weight of Catherine's decision hanging between them like a physical presence. Whatever you choose, Emma said quietly, I won't abandon you, but I need to know you're being honest with me. About everything. Catherine nodded, understanding the ultimatum for what it was. I'll give you my answer in the morning. The rain continued its steady rhythm against the window, washing the world clean outside while inside, two sisters confronted the difficult path toward redemption. Emma woke early the next morning, her back stiff from a night spent on her secondhand couch. She'd insisted Catherine take the bedroom, a small kindness that surprised them both. Through the thin wall, she could hear her sister's phone alarm, chiming, followed by the sounds of movement. While Catherine showered, Emma made coffee and checked her own phone. She had a session with Dr. Mason scheduled for later that day. Virtual, thankfully. She needed the guidance now more than ever. Catherine emerged from the bedroom looking marginally more put together than yesterday, though the shadows under her eyes remained. Coffee? Emma offered, sliding a mug across the counter. Thanks. Catherine took a sip, then set the mug down with determination. I've been thinking all night about what you said. Emma waited, giving her sister space to continue. I'm not signing those documents, Catherine said firmly. You're right, it would just compound the mistake. I'll meet with Harrison Brooks as planned, but I want to pursue your idea of working with the FBI. Relief washed over Emma. This was the first step towards something resembling redemption. I'll go with you to the lawyer, she said. Then we should contact Special Agent Rivera together. She'd found the agent's name on the FBI report Catherine had filed. Catherine nodded, a hint of her old confidence returning. Thank you. They arrived at Harrison Brooks's downtown office precisely at 9. The reception area screamed old money. Leather furnishings, oil paintings, subtle displays of influence and connection. Emma felt conspicuously underdressed in her clinic clothes. Harrison Brooks himself matched his surroundings. Silver-haired, impeccably tailored, radiating competence and discretion. He greeted Catherine warmly, then raised an eyebrow at Emma's presence. This is my sister, Emma, Catherine explained. She's directly involved in the situation. I see. Brooks gestured them into his office. Please sit down. For the next 30 minutes, Catherine outlined the entire scenario. The inheritance theft, the investment scam, the company funds she'd misappropriated. Emma watched Brooks's expression remain professionally neutral throughout, though his questions grew increasingly pointed. So, he concluded when Catherine finished, we're dealing with multiple issues. Potential embezzlement charges from the company, civil liability to your sister for the misappropriated inheritance, and your status as a victim in the investment. Fraud. He steepled his fingers. Complex, but not insurmountable. What are my options? Catherine asked. Brooks leaned back in his chair. Conventionally, I'd advise securing the audit documents, preparing a defense against potential charges, and negotiating with the board from a position of damage control. He glanced at Emma. The family situation would be handled separately, assuming your sister intends to pursue restitution. We have a different approach in mind, Emma interjected. She outlined her strategy of working proactively with the FBI to catch Jason using Catherine as bait. Brooks listened intently, his expression thoughtful. Creative, but extremely risky, he said when she finished. If successful, it could indeed mitigate the consequences Catherine faces. If it fails, he let the implication hang. We understand the risks, Catherine said. Do you? Brooks fixed her with a penetrating gaze. Best case scenario, you still lose your position at the company, face significant civil penalties and possible probation. Worst case, you face felony charges and prison time. Catherine paled but held her ground. I'm prepared to accept the consequences of my actions, but I want to try to make this right first. Brooke studied her for a moment, then nodded with what seemed like respect. Then let me offer some advice for approaching the FBI. They'll be more receptive if you bring them actionable intelligence, not just willingness to cooperate. The meeting continued for another hour, with Brooks outlining legal strategies, potential pitfalls, and crucial documentation they would need. By the time they left his office, Emma felt both overwhelmed and cautiously hopeful. He's good, she commented as they walked to Catherine's car. He should be. At $800 an hour, Catherine replied with a wan smile. They spent the afternoon gathering evidence, organizing emails, financial records, photos, anything that might help identify Jason and his operation. Emma called the clinic to take a personal day, then remembered her appointment with Dr. Mason. I need to take this call, she told Catherine. It's my therapist. Give me an hour. Catherine nodded, focused on compiling a list of potential Jason sightings from social media. Take your time. Emma set up her laptop in the bedroom, closing the door for privacy. When Dr. Mason's face appeared on screen, the familiar calm presence brought unexpected emotion welling up. Emma, Dr. Mason smiled warmly. How are you holding up? That's complicated, Emma replied, then found herself pouring out the entire story. Catherine's betrayal, the investment scam, their current precarious situation. Dr. Mason listened without interruption, her expression compassionate but neutral. When Emma finished, she asked simply, "What do you need from our session today?" Emma considered the question. Clarity, I think, about whether I'm doing the right thing by helping her. There's no objectively right thing here, Dr. Mason observed. Only choices that align with your values. What's motivating you to help Catherine despite what she did to you? Partly practicality. It might be the only way to recover any of my money, Emma admitted. But it's more than that. Seeing her so broken, so desperate, it's changed something. How so? Emma struggled to articulate the shifting emotions. All my life, Catherine was the strong one, the perfect one. Now I'm seeing her vulnerability, her mistakes. It makes her human in a way she never was before. Dr. Mason nodded encouragingly. And how does that affect your feelings toward her? I'm still angry, Emma said firmly. What she did was unforgivable, but I also understand better why she did it. She paused, considering, maybe this is a chance for both of us to break old patterns, to see each other clearly for the first time. That sounds like growth, Dr. Mason observed. Just be cautious about boundaries. Helping doesn't mean enabling or excusing. I know, Emma agreed. I'm trying to support without sacrificing my own well-being this time. They spent the remainder of the session discussing specific boundaries and self-care strategies. When the call ended, Emma felt more centered, more confident in her approach. She rejoined Catherine in the living room, finding her sister surrounded by paper trails and digital breadcrumbs. How was your session? Catherine asked, glancing up from her laptop. Helpful, Emma replied simply. I've been thinking about our next steps. Before we contact the FBI, we should speak with Dad's old friend, Judge Wilson. He might have insights on how to approach them most effectively. Catherine looked surprised. You've stayed in touch with him? He checked on me after Dad died. We have coffee occasionally. Emma didn't add that the judge had been one of the few people who'd seen her value beyond her anxiety, who'd encouraged her career choices when her father had been skeptical. Good thinking, Catherine acknowledged. He always had connections in federal law enforcement. Emma nodded, picking up her phone. I'll call him now. And Catherine, we're doing this my way. Complete honesty, no manipulation, no shortcuts. Understood. Catherine met her gaze steadily. Understood. I'm following your lead on this. It was? Emma reflected as she dialed. Perhaps the first time those words had ever been spoken between them. A small but significant shift in their lifelong dynamic. Judge Wilson answered on the third ring, his gruff voice warming when he recognized Emma. My dear, it's been too long. How are you? I need your help, Judge, Emma said simply. It's about Catherine, the company, and a fraud that's affected us both. Do you have time to meet today? For Richard's daughters? Always, he replied without hesitation. Come to the house at 4. Gloria will make that tea you like. As Emma ended the call, she felt the first genuine stirring of hope. They had a plan, professional guidance, and potentially powerful allies. It wasn't much, but it was a start. He'll see us at 4, she told Catherine. We have 2 hours to organize everything we know about Jason Holloway. Let's make them count. Judge Wilson's stately Victorian home stood on a tree-lined street in the historic district, a relic from a time when the city's elite built mansions to display their prominence. Emma had always found comfort in the house's worn elegance. Its polished banisters, creaking floorboards, and walls lined with books that were actually read, not just displayed. Gloria Wilson, the judge's wife of 45 years, ushered them into the study with minimal fuss, serving Earl Grey tea in delicate cups before discreetly withdrawing. Judge Wilson himself, retired for 5 years but still commanding respect, listened intently as the sisters took turns explaining their situation. "Complicated mess you've gotten yourselves into," he commented when they finished, his bushy eyebrows drawn together. Richard would be concerned. Catherine flinched at the mention of their father. Emma noticed but continued, spreading their evidence across the judge's desk. "We've compiled everything we know about Jason Holloway," she explained, his patterns, contacts, physical description. "We believe he's still in the country based on recent activity from accounts connected to his aliases." The judge examined their materials with a practiced eye. "Impressive investigative work," he acknowledged. "But what exactly do you hope to accomplish by sharing this with the FBI? They're already aware of the fraud. We want to offer Catherine's cooperation as a known target," Emma explained. "Use her position to draw him out, potentially recover funds before they're lost completely. And you believe this approach might mitigate the consequences of her actions regarding the company funds and your inheritance?" the judge asked pointedly. Catherine answered before Emma could. "I know I'll face consequences regardless. I accept that. But if there's any chance of recovering what was stolen, not just our money, but what was taken from all the victims, I want to help make that happen." Judge Wilson studied Catherine, seeming to weigh her sincerity. "Redemption is a powerful motivator," he observed, "though rarely as straightforward as we hope." He turned to Emma. "And you? Why involve yourself in this after what your sister did?" "Because it's the right thing to do," Emma said simply, "and because I want my inheritance back." The judge's weathered face creased into a smile. "Honest. Your father would approve." He turned serious again. "I do have contacts at the Bureau who might be receptive to your proposal. Agent Donovan heads the Financial Crimes Division. We play chess monthly. I could arrange an introduction." "That would be tremendously helpful," Catherine said. "Before I make that call, I need absolute certainty you're committed to this course," the judge warned. "Once set in motion, you cannot back out without serious repercussions." Both sisters nodded solemnly. "Very well." Judge Wilson reached for his phone. "Give me a moment." While the judge spoke quietly with his contact, Emma and Catherine exchanged glances. There was no turning back now. "Agent Donovan will meet you tomorrow morning at 8, the judge announced after hanging up, "at the coffee shop across from the federal building. Informal setting, no official statements yet, just an exploratory conversation. Thank you," Emma said sincerely. "Don't thank me yet," the judge cautioned. "Donovan is thorough and uncompromising. He'll want full disclosure on everything, including the company funds and the inheritance." Catherine nodded, her expression resolute. "I understand." As they prepared to leave, Judge Wilson took Emma aside. "A moment, my dear." Catherine tactfully stepped outside, giving them privacy. "Your sister's actions were reprehensible," the judge said quietly, "but I sense genuine remorse. Not just fear of consequences, but true regret." "I think so too," Emma admitted, "but trust is harder to rebuild than to break." "Indeed." The judge patted her hand. "You've grown stronger since I saw you last. More centered. Richard would be proud." Emma smiled sadly. "I hope so. Though I'm not sure he ever really saw me clearly." "Perhaps not," the judge acknowledged. "Richard was a complicated man with his own blind spots. But he loved you both, in his way." Emma nodded, accepting the judge's assessment of her father. Flawed but well-intentioned, like most parents. "One more thing," the judge added as she turned to go. "I'll make some discreet inquiries about this Jason character through my own channels. Old judges have networks even the FBI sometimes lacks." "Thank you," Emma said, genuinely moved by his support. The sisters drove back to Emma's apartment in thoughtful silence. The meeting with Agent Donovan loomed ahead, a critical juncture that would determine their path forward. "We should prepare." "What we're going to say tomorrow," Catherine said as they entered the apartment. "Yes, but first there's something else we need to do," Emma replied, picking up her phone. "Call Michael Reed. We need a complete accounting of exactly how the money was transferred, where it went initially, and any transaction trails he can access." Catherine looked surprised but nodded in agreement. "Good thinking." The financial advisor answered immediately, his concern evident when Catherine explained the purpose of their call. "I've been worried sick about this situation," he admitted. "The audit is scheduled for Monday, and the board members have been asking questions I've been struggling to deflect. We're working on a solution, Emma assured him, but we need your help tracking the money. I'll do whatever I can, Michael promised. I should have questioned the transfers more aggressively when they happened. I feel partly responsible. This is my responsibility alone, Catherine said firmly. But your assistance now would be invaluable. Michael agreed to compile comprehensive transaction records and meet them at Emma's apartment that evening. After the call ended, Emma turned to her sister. While we wait for Michael, let's identify every other investor we can, she suggested. The more victims we can connect, the stronger our case for the FBI. They spent the next 2 hours combing through Catherine's emails, social media, and recollections of events Jason had organized. By the time Michael arrived with a stack of financial documents, they had identified 14 potential victims beyond the 6 already known to authorities. This is impressive work, Michael said, reviewing their findings. The Bureau will want this information. The 3 of them worked late into the night, following money trails through shell companies and offshore accounts. Michael's expertise proved invaluable as he identified patterns in the transactions that might otherwise have gone unnoticed. There's something odd here, he noted around midnight, pointing to a series of transfers. These amounts moved from Quantum Edge to various accounts, but then portions were consolidated again here, at Meridian Trust Bank in the Caymans. Is that significant? Emma asked. Potentially. Most sophisticated scammers disperse funds widely to obscure the trail. This consolidation suggests either carelessness or what? Catherine pressed. Or he's planning another operation, Michael concluded grimly, gathering capital for his next scam. This revelation added urgency to their investigation. If Jason was indeed preparing a new scheme, they might have a narrow window to catch him before he disappeared with the money permanently. We need to find out who else banks at Meridian Trust, Emma said. Other victims, other scammers. There might be connections we're missing. Michael hesitated. That would require access I don't have. Banking privacy laws. Agent Donovan might, Catherine interjected. With proper warrants, they continued working until exhaustion overtook them. Michael left around 1 a.m. with promises to continue researching from his office. Catherine collapsed on the couch while Emma took the bedroom, both too tired to argue about sleeping arrangements. As Emma drifted toward sleep, her mind continued processing everything they'd learned. The judge's support, Michael's expertise, the patterns emerging from the financial records, all pieces of a puzzle that was slowly taking shape. For the first time since discovering Catherine's betrayal, Emma felt a glimmer of hope, not just for recovering their money, but for something more elusive, understanding the sister who had hurt her so deeply, perhaps even finding a path toward forgiveness. Tomorrow's meeting with Agent Donovan would be crucial. As sleep finally claimed her, Emma's last conscious thought was a silent promise. To herself, to Catherine, and to all the other victims. They would find Jason Holloway and make him answer for what he'd done. Agent Donovan was not what Emma had expected. Rather than the stern, suited federal agent of television dramas, she found herself facing a compact man in his 50s with kind eyes and a rumpled sport coat. He ordered a regular coffee, no fancy, espresso drink, and listened without interruption as the sisters presented their evidence and proposal. This is more comprehensive than what we typically get from victims, he acknowledged when they finished. Judge Wilson said you were thorough, but this is impressive. Does that mean you'll help us? Catherine asked cautiously. It means I'm interested, Donovan clarified, but there are complications. Your involvement with company funds creates legal issues beyond the investment fraud. I understand, Catherine said quietly. I'm prepared to face those consequences separately, but I want to help catch Jason first. Donovan studied her, seeming to assess her sincerity. The Meridian Trust connection is particularly intriguing. We've been tracking similar patterns with other investment scams. He pulled out a tablet, tapped a few times, then turned it toward them. Is this the man you knew as Jason Holloway? The screen showed a candid photo of a handsome man in his 30s. Dark hair, confident smile, expensive watch visible on his wrist. That's him, Catherine confirmed, leaning closer. Where was this taken? Miami. 3 days ago. Donovan's expression was grim. We believe he's operating under the name Alexander Worth now, setting up a new investment scheme targeting tech industry executives. Emma felt her pulse quicken. So he's still in the country, still accessible. For now, Donovan agreed, which is why your timing is fortunate. He took a sip of coffee, considering. I'm willing to work with you, under strict conditions and bureau supervision. No amateur detective work, no direct contact without our approval. The sisters agreed, readily. What followed was 2 weeks of intense collaboration with Donovan and his team. Emma took leave from the clinic, explaining only that she was dealing with a family emergency. Catherine, with the FBI's careful guidance, maintained normal operations at the Montgomery Group, while quietly delaying the audit by claiming discovery of accounting irregularities that required preliminary investigation. The plan they developed was elegant in its simplicity. Catherine would reach out to Jason as a potential investor in his new scheme, claiming to have hidden assets the FBI hadn't discovered. The bait, another $2 million she'd supposedly kept in a separate account. "He's greedy but not stupid," Agent Donovan warned during a strategy session in the FBI's downtown office. "He'll be suspicious of any direct approach. Then we make it indirect," Emma suggested, "through someone he wouldn't expect to be connected to Catherine." This was how Emma found herself walking into the lobby of the Four Seasons Hotel in Miami, wearing a designer outfit borrowed from Catherine, and carrying a briefcase containing nothing more dangerous than legal pads and a recording device approved by the FBI. "Remember?" Agent Donovan's voice came through her nearly invisible earpiece. "You're Emma Taylor, wealth manager for private clients. You heard about Mr. Worth's investment opportunity through a colleague and are exploring options for a client who prefers anonymity." "Got it," Emma murmured, approaching the hotel bar where Alexander Worth had agreed to meet her. She spotted him immediately. The same confident smile, the same expensive watch, now paired with a linen suit perfect for Miami's climate. Emma took a steadying breath, drawing on every therapeutic technique she'd ever taught her clients. "Mr. Worth?" She extended her hand with practiced poise. "Emma Taylor, thank you for making time for me. The pleasure is mine," he replied, his voice smooth as aged whiskey. "Any friend of Marcus is a friend of mine." Marcus didn't exist. He was a fabricated connection created by the FBI using intelligence from other victims. But Alexander didn't need to know that. For the next 30 minutes, Emma played her role flawlessly, asking knowledgeable questions about his investment opportunity while dropping hints about her wealthy client. "They're looking to diversify significantly," she explained, sipping mineral water. "Recent liquidity event. Approximately $2 million available for immediate investment." She saw the flicker of interest in his eyes, though he maintained his professional demeanor. "Our minimum buy-in is actually $3 million, he countered smoothly. "Though for the right investor, exceptions can sometimes be made." "I'll discuss it with my client," Emma replied. "They're quite private. Family money, you understand. Recent complications with relatives have made discretion particularly important." The bait was set. Now they needed him to bite. "Perhaps I could speak with your client directly," he suggested. "Sometimes these concerns are best addressed in person. They're quite adamant about maintaining their anonymity until the preliminary." "Agreements are in place," Emma demurred. "Previous experience has made them cautious." The dance continued, a delicate negotiation of trust and suspicion. Emma felt sweat trickling down her back despite the hotel's aggressive air conditioning. One wrong move, one inconsistent detail, and he might disappear, along with any hope of recovering their money. "I'm curious, Ms. Taylor," he said suddenly, his tone casual but his eyes sharp. "How long have you been in wealth management? Your approach seems refreshingly direct." A test. Emma maintained her composure, reciting the background the FBI had created for her. 8 years with Barclays Private Client Group before establishing my own practice. I find that transparency, to the extent privacy allows, serves everyone's interests." He nodded, seemingly satisfied. "I agree completely. Transparency is essential." The irony of this statement from a professional con artist was not lost on Emma. As their meeting concluded, he handed her a prospectus for his exclusive investment opportunity, Quantum Horizon Technologies, a name just different enough from his previous scam to avoid immediate connections. "I look forward to hearing from your client," he said, holding her gaze a beat too long. "You will," Emma promised, maintaining eye contact. "Very soon." Outside, in the rental car where Agent Donovan waited, Emma finally allowed herself to exhale. "He's cautious but interested," she reported. "And he's using almost the identical pitch as before, just with a new company name." "You did well," Donovan said, reviewing the recording. "Now we wait for him to run his background check on Emma Taylor." The carefully constructed false identity would withstand scrutiny, leading eventually to shell companies that would connect back to Catherine, exactly as they planned. 3 days later, Alexander Worth called Emma's burner phone. "Ms. Taylor, I've been considering your client's situation. Perhaps we could discuss specifics over dinner." "I think my client might actually be ready to meet with you directly," Emma replied, following the script. "They've reviewed your prospectus and found it quite compelling. A pause. I thought anonymity was a priority. It was, until they saw the potential returns. Some opportunities are worth the personal touch. The trap was set. Alexander agreed to meet Catherine, who he still didn't know was Catherine Montgomery, at a private dining room in Miami's most exclusive restaurant the following evening. As Emma hung up, she caught Catherine's anxious expression from across the hotel suite the FBI had commandeered for their operation. He's taking the bait, Emma confirmed. Tomorrow night, we confront the man who stole our future. The private dining room at Aria was all polished wood and subtle lighting, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Biscayne Bay. Catherine sat alone at the table, the Miami skyline glittering behind her like a constellation of earthbound stars. She wore a simple black dress, her hair swept into an elegant chignon, the picture of wealthy sophistication. Hidden beneath the table, her hands trembled. "You're doing fine." Emma's voice came through the nearly invisible earpiece. "He's just arrived downstairs. Agent Donovan has visual confirmation." Catherine took a steadying breath. The FBI team was positioned throughout the restaurant. Agent Donovan at the bar, 2 agents posing as a couple at a nearby table, Emma and another agent monitoring from the surveillance van parked outside. The plan was precise. Catherine would confront Alexander with her knowledge of his true identity, record his confession while keeping him talking long enough for the FBI to close in. The recording would serve as evidence not only against him, but potentially to mitigate Catherine's own legal troubles. The door opened. Catherine felt her heart stutter as Jason Alexander entered, his practiced smile freezing when he recognized her. "Catherine Montgomery," he said after a moment, his voice carefully controlled. "This is unexpected." "Is it, Jason?" Catherine gestured to the chair across from her. "Or should I call you Alexander now? Please sit. We have much to discuss." His eyes darted toward the door, calculating his escape options. "I think there's been a misunderstanding." "No misunderstanding," Catherine said calmly. "I know exactly who you are and what you did. The question is whether you're smart enough to hear my proposal before you run." His curiosity apparently outweighed his caution. He sat, maintaining his composure with impressive skill. "I'm listening." "The FBI is closing in," Catherine said bluntly. "They've frozen most of the accounts connected to Quantum Edge, but not all of them." His expression betrayed nothing. "I'm afraid I don't know what you're talking about." "Meridian Trust Bank," Catherine continued. "Cayman Islands. Approximately $6 million consolidated from various shell companies. Money that belongs to me and 25 other investors you defrauded." A flicker of surprise crossed his face, not at the mention of the money, but at her specific knowledge of its location. "Stay on script," Emma's voice cautioned in Catherine's ear. "Whatever." "You think you know," he began. "I know everything, Jason," Catherine interrupted. "Every account, every shell company, every alias you've used in the past 5 years. Robert Sloan in Seattle, David Mercer in Chicago. The FBI has it all." This was a calculated risk. They didn't actually have his complete history, but the specificity of the names they did know might convince him they had more. It worked. His confident facade cracked slightly. "What do you want?" "A partnership," Catherine replied, leaning forward. "I have resources the FBI doesn't know about. You have skills I can use. Together we can stay one step ahead of them." "She's got him interested." Agent Donovan's voice came through Emma's headset in the van. "Tell her to push the opportunity angle." Emma relayed the instruction to Catherine, who smoothly pivoted the conversation. "The Montgomery Group has access to investment capital that makes your current operation look like pocket change," she said. "High net worth clients who trust our family name implicitly. The same family name that will be ruined when they discover you embezzled company funds," he countered, revealing his own research. Catherine's breath caught, but she maintained her composure. "A temporary cash flow issue, easily resolved with the right partner. And why would I trust you?" he asked. Though his interest was evident. "You tracked me down, threatened me with FBI involvement. Not exactly a foundation for partnership." "Because I'm offering you immunity," Catherine said, the key phrase that would prompt the FBI to move closer. "And $20 million in fresh investment capital." On cue, the waiter, actually an FBI agent, approached with champagne. Compliments of the house for Ms. Montgomery and her guest. As the waiter poured, Jason leaned closer to Catherine. "Let's assume I'm interested. How would this work? First, you transfer the remaining Quantum Edge funds back to me as a good faith gesture," Catherine explained. "Then we establish a new operation, legitimate on paper, with built-in protections for both of us. And the FBI investigation. I have connections that can redirect their focus," Catherine claimed. "My family has considerable influence." Jason studied her, clearly weighing his options. "You know, I almost believe you," he said finally. "You're better at this than I expected. But there's one problem with your story." Catherine felt a chill. "What's that?" The real Catherine Montgomery would never risk her company's reputation on a partnership with someone who defrauded her. His voice hardened. "So who are you really working for?" In the surveillance van, Emma tensed. "He's suspicious. Tell her to redirect." Before she could relay the message, Jason abruptly stood. "This meeting is over." "Wait," Catherine said urgently, abandoning the script. "It's not what you think." "I need that money, Jason. My sister." The genuine desperation in her voice gave him pause. "Your sister? Emma, I took her inheritance, invested it with you." Catherine's hands shook visibly now. "She'll never forgive me unless I get it back." Something shifted in Jason's expression, recognition perhaps of authentic emotion amidst the deception. He sat back down slowly. "You really did invest with me," he said, comprehension dawning. "And you really did lose everything." "Yes," Catherine whispered. "So this isn't just an FBI sting," he mused. "It's personal." A slow smile spread across his face. "That actually makes more sense." "Careful," Emma warned through the earpiece. "He's recalibrating." Jason leaned forward, his voice dropping to a confidential murmur. "Let me tell you how this really works, Catherine. The money is gone. Distributed through so many channels that even I couldn't recover it all now. The FBI knows this. That's why they're using you as bait." "He's trying to manipulate her," Agent Donovan said sharply. "We need to move now." "Wait," Emma countered. "Let her handle this. She needs to get his confession first." In the dining room, Catherine maintained steady eye contact with Jason. "I don't believe you. The Meridian Trust accounts are already emptied," he finished for her. "That information is weeks old. I move fast, Catherine. It's how I've stayed ahead all these years." He glanced at his watch, then stood again. "Our time is up. For what it's worth, I am sorry about your sister. Family betrayal is particularly painful." Catherine stood as well, desperately improvising. "Tell me one thing before you go. How many times have you done this? How many lives have you destroyed?" The question seemed to amuse him. "Destroyed? Please, I provide a valuable service, separating the greedy from their money. Everyone I target wants something for nothing. Easy returns without effort or risk." His smile turned cruel. "People like you." It was the confession they needed, oblique but incriminating. Catherine pressed the small button on her bracelet, signaling the FBI team. "People like me," she repeated quietly, "who trusted when we shouldn't have, who believed in something that seemed too good to be true." "Exactly," Jason agreed, already moving toward the door. "The oldest lesson in finance. There's just one problem with your assessment," Catherine said, her voice suddenly steady. "I'm not leaving empty-handed tonight." Jason paused, frowning. "What do you mean?" "Your confession," Catherine said simply, "to fraud across multiple states. Enough to put you away for decades." His expression darkened. "You're wired, and you're surrounded," Agent Donovan announced, appearing in the doorway with his badge displayed. "FBI, you're under arrest." What happened next unfolded with frightening speed. Jason lunged forward, grabbed Catherine's arm, and pulled her against him as a human shield. Something pressed against her ribs, a small pistol, previously concealed. "Back. Off," he ordered Donovan, "or she gets hurt." In the surveillance van, Emma watched in horror on the monitors. "He has a gun. How did he get a gun past security?" "Plastic components," the tech agent explained grimly. "Minimal metal. Our team is moving into position, but he's got your sister directly in the line of fire." Emma made a split-second decision. Ignoring the agent's protests, she exited the van and ran toward the restaurant's service entrance. Inside, the standoff continued. Jason was backing toward the private exit, using Catherine as a shield. "Here's what's going to happen," he was saying. "Ms. Montgomery and I are going to walk out of here together. Any interference, she gets hurt. Understood? This won't end well for you," Donovan said calmly. "The building is surrounded. Then I have nothing to lose, do I?" Jason countered. Catherine's eyes met Donovan's, conveying a silent message. The agent gave an almost imperceptible nod. "Now," Jason instructed, tightening his grip on Catherine. "Move slowly toward the—" Catherine suddenly went limp, dropping her full weight downward. The unexpected movement threw Jason off balance just as Donovan lunged forward. A shot rang out. Catherine screamed. Then chaos erupted as FBI agents swarmed the room. The hospital waiting room smelled of antiseptic and stale coffee. Emma sat rigidly in an uncomfortable plastic chair, staring at the institutional beige wall without seeing it. Her mind kept replaying the moment she'd burst into the private dining room through the service entrance, just in time to see Catherine collapse to the floor as FBI agents tackled Jason. The blood. There had been so much blood. Ms. Montgomery? Emma looked up to see a doctor in surgical scrubs standing before her. She rose quickly, heart pounding. Yes? How is she? Your sister is stable, the doctor said, and Emma felt her knees weaken. With relief, the bullet grazed her shoulder. Painful, but no major damage to arteries or bone. She's been extremely fortunate. Can I see her? Briefly. She's sedated but conscious. The doctor hesitated. There are federal agents waiting to speak with her when she's more alert. Emma nodded. Of course there were. Despite Catherine's cooperation, despite her injury, there would still be consequences to face. Catherine's hospital room was dimly lit, the rhythmic beeping of monitors providing a strangely soothing backdrop. She lay propped against white pillows, her left shoulder heavily bandaged, her face pale but peaceful. Hey, Emma said softly, approaching the bed. Catherine's eyes fluttered open. Emma, she murmured. You came. Of course I came, Emma replied, carefully taking her sister's uninjured hand. You scared me half to death. A weak smile touched Catherine's lips. Sorry about that. Not exactly how we planned it. No, Emma agreed. But they got him. Jason, or whatever his real name is in custody. Agent Donovan says he's already trying to negotiate a deal, offering information on other scams. Good, Catherine whispered. Worth it, then. Emma shook her head in exasperation. Getting shot is not worth it. What were you thinking, dropping like that? Donovan said the plan was to wait for a clear shot. Saw an opportunity, Catherine said drowsily. Couldn't let him escape. Not after everything. Emma sighed, recognizing the stubborn determination that had always characterized her sister, for better or worse. The doctor says you'll be fine. No permanent damage. Catherine nodded slightly. What about the company? The audit? Don't worry about that now. Emma soothed. Just rest. But Catherine persisted, her grip on Emma's hand tightening. Tell me, please. Emma hesitated, then relented. Agent Donovan contacted the board chairman, explained that you've been cooperating with a federal investigation and that the company funds were compromised in connection with that case. They know I took the money? Not exactly, Emma said carefully. The details are still vague. Donovan suggested they postpone the audit until the federal investigation concludes. The chairman agreed. Relief washed over Catherine's features. Buys us some time. A little, Emma conceded. But Catherine, you'll still have to face the consequences. Eventually. For the company funds and for my inheritance. Catherine's eyes filled with tears. I know, and I will. Whatever it takes to make things right between us. The simple sincerity in her voice touched something in Emma. For weeks, she'd held her anger like armor, protecting herself from further hurt. Now, looking at her sister's vulnerable form in the hospital bed, she felt that armor beginning to crack. Get some rest, she said gently. We'll figure it out. As Catherine drifted back to sleep, Emma stepped into the hallway to find Agent Donovan waiting. His normally composed expression showed signs of strain, a reminder that the evening had been harrowing for everyone involved. How is she? He asked. Resting, Emma replied. The doctor says she'll recover fully. Donovan nodded. She's got courage. That move she pulled was reckless, but it gave us the opening we needed. What happens now? Emma asked, cutting to her most pressing concern. Now we build our case against Jason. Real name Eric Daniels, by the way. Long history of investment. Fraud across multiple states. Donovan's expression turned sympathetic. As for your sister, her cooperation has been noted. The U.S. attorney will take that into consideration when determining charges. Charges, Emma repeated, the word landing like a stone. For the company funds, and potentially for wire fraud related to your inheritance. Donovan confirmed. I'm sorry, Ms. Montgomery. Your sister's assistance has been invaluable, but it doesn't erase her earlier actions. Emma nodded, having expected this answer. What can I do to help her case? Document everything. Her cooperation, her insights that led to Daniel's capture, the injury she sustained in service of the investigation. Donovan's voice softened slightly. And consider whether you want to press charges yourself regarding your inheritance. Your position on that matter will carry significant weight. It was the question Emma had been avoiding. Did she want Catherine to face criminal charges for stealing her inheritance? The answer wasn't as clear-cut as it once would have been. I need time to think about that, she said honestly. Of course. Donovan handed her his card. Call me when you've decided. And Ms. Montgomery? For what it's worth, I believe your sister is genuinely remorseful. That counts for something in my book. After he left, Emma returned to Catherine's room and settled into the chair beside the bed. She watched her sister sleep, thinking about choices and consequences, betrayal and forgiveness. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of hospital visits, legal consultations, and difficult decisions. Catherine was released after 3 days, her arm in a sling, but her determination undiminished. Together, the sisters met with Harrison Brooks to develop a strategy for addressing the company funds issue. Voluntary disclosure before the audit. Resumes is your best approach, Brooks advised during a meeting in his office. Combined with your FBI cooperation, it presents a narrative of redemption rather than evasion. Catherine nodded, accepting this hard truth. And restitution? How? Do I return money I no longer have? That's where I might have some good news, Brooks said, opening a folder on his desk. The FBI has recovered approximately 30% of the funds Daniel stole. As his victims, you're entitled to your share of that recovery. Emma leaned forward. How much? Based on your $4 million investment, roughly $1.2 million, Brooks calculated. Enough to repay the company and have some left over. Not a full recovery, but better than many victims receive in these cases. Catherine turned to Emma, her expression serious. The company gets repaid first. Whatever's left goes to you. Toward, restoring your inheritance? Emma started to protest. But Catherine held up her hand. I'm not negotiating on this, Em. It's the right thing to do. The gesture, while insufficient to restore the full inheritance, represented something more valuable. Catherine's genuine commitment to making amends. It was a beginning, a foundation upon which they might rebuild their shattered relationship. That evening in Emma's apartment, Catherine handed her a small velvet pouch. This isn't part of the financial restitution, she explained. It's something else I should have given you long ago. Emma opened the pouch to find their father's Paytech Philippe watch, a family heirloom he'd worn every day of his working life. Dad left it to you, Catherine admitted, in a separate letter I found after the will was read. I kept it because, she trailed off, then forced herself to continue, because I was jealous. He wrote that it should go to you because you'd understand. Its real value wasn't in the price, but in the moments it had witnessed. Emma carefully held the watch, feeling its weight. Physical and symbolic. Why give it to me now? Because I'm trying to be honest about everything, Catherine said simply. No more secrets between us. No more jealousy or resentment driving my actions. Emma looked up at her sister, seeing genuine contrition in her eyes. This means more to me than the money, she said quietly. The effort to make things right. The truth, however painful. Catherine nodded, understanding. I have a long way to go to earn back your trust. I know that, but I'm committed to the journey, however long it takes. As she fastened their father's watch around her wrist, Emma felt something shift between them. Not forgiveness, not yet, but the possibility of it. A door left ajar that had previously been slammed shut. Small steps, she said, offering Catherine the first genuine smile since the betrayal. We'll take it one day at a time. The Montgomery Group's boardroom was imposingly silent as Catherine finished speaking. 10 pairs of eyes regarded her with expressions ranging from shock to disappointment to barely concealed anger. She had just completed a full disclosure of her actions, the misappropriation of company funds, the investment scheme, and her subsequent cooperation with federal authorities. Emma sat beside her, a quiet presence of support. Though this was Catherine's reckoning to face alone, they had agreed Emma's attendance might demonstrate family unity to the board. Let me be clear, said Howard Jensen, the board chairman and their father's oldest friend. You diverted $200,000 of company funds for personal use, falsified documentation to cover the transfer, and only came forward because an FBI investigation forced your hand. Catherine met his gaze steadily. Yes, those are the facts. And you've returned the funds in full? Jensen confirmed. Yes. The wire transfer was completed yesterday, with interest. Jensen exchanged glances with the other board members. The legal implications aside, this represents a profound breach of trust, Catherine. Your father would be deeply disappointed. The words stung, but Catherine nodded. I know. I've disappointed myself as well. Emma watched her sister's composure with a mixture of respect and concern. In the month since Catherine's injury, she had approached her penance with unwavering resolve, meeting with FBI agents, cooperating with prosecutors, preparing her disclosure to the board. There had been no excuses, no attempts to minimize her actions. Jensen sighed heavily. The board will need to discuss this privately. Please wait outside. In the hallway, Catherine leaned against the wall, suddenly looking exhausted. That went about as expected. You did the right thing, Emma reassured her. Complete honesty was the only path forward. I know. I just hope. Catherine stopped as the boardroom door opened. Jensen beckoned them back inside. The sisters exchanged glances before returning to face the verdict. The board has reached a decision, Jensen announced once they were seated. Catherine, your actions constitute grounds for immediate termination. However, in recognition of your cooperation with authorities, your voluntary disclosure, and your family's legacy with this company, we are offering an alternative. Catherine straightened. I'm listening. Resignation rather than termination. A structured exit that allows for transition of your responsibilities and projects. No public statement regarding the misappropriation of funds, provided the money remains repaid and no charges are filed. It was more generous than Catherine had dared hope. Thank you, she said quietly. I accept those terms. Additionally, Jensen continued, we've agreed that during this transition period, you will train your replacement as CEO. Catherine nodded, then frowned slightly. May I ask who the board has selected? Jensen's stern expression softened slightly. We'd like to offer the position to Emma. Both sisters stared at him in shock. Me? Emma finally managed. But I have no experience in real estate development. I'm a therapist, with an undergraduate degree in business administration, Jensen reminded her. And more importantly, with the Montgomery integrity that has been this company's foundation since its inception. I don't understand, Catherine said, confusion evident. After what I did, the board doesn't hold you solely responsible for this situation, Catherine, Jensen explained. We recognize that following Richard's death, you were thrust into leadership without adequate support or preparation. That was our failure as much as yours. He turned to Emma. We need someone at the helm who embodies the ethical leadership Richard valued. Someone who can restore trust and stability. The staff already respect you, Emma, after how you've handled this crisis. Emma shook her head, overwhelmed. I don't know if I can. You don't have to decide immediately, Jensen assured her. Consider it carefully. Consult with Catherine during the transition period. If you decline, we'll pursue external candidates. After the meeting concluded, the sisters walked silently to the elevator, both processing the unexpected proposal. Would you consider it? Catherine finally asked. As the doors closed behind them, Emma leaned against the elevator wall. It seems impossible. I know nothing about running a company. You know more than you think, Catherine countered. And you'd have advisors, department heads with experience. Dad always said your emotional intelligence was your greatest strength. That's more valuable in leadership than you might realize. The elevator reached the lobby and they stepped out into the afternoon sunlight. I need time to think, Emma said. This isn't a decision to make lightly. Of course, Catherine agreed. Just know that if you want it, I believe you'd be extraordinary. They parted ways on the sidewalk, Catherine to meet with her lawyer, Emma to her afternoon shift at the clinic. As Emma walked, her mind whirled with possibilities she'd never considered. Running her father's company had always been Catherine's destiny, never hers. Yet now, against all expectations, she was being offered the chance to shape that legacy. That evening, Emma found herself driving to the cemetery where their father was buried. She hadn't visited since the funeral, finding the formality of gravesite, mourning at odds with her own grieving process. Now, however, she felt drawn to this tangible connection to him. The simple granite headstone bore only his name, dates, and the words, Builder of Dreams. Emma stood before it, feeling strangely calm. They've offered me your company, Dad, she said aloud. What do you think about that? No answer came, of course, but as the setting sun cast long shadows across the peaceful grounds, Emma felt a sense of clarity beginning to form. Her phone chimed with a text from Catherine. Whatever you decide, I support you. No pressure either way. Emma smiled slightly, recognizing the growth this message represented. A month ago, Catherine would have been pushing her agenda, trying to influence Emma's choice. Now she was creating space for Emma to find her own path. As twilight descended, Emma made her decision, not out of obligation to her father's memory or pressure from the board, but from a place of newly discovered strength and purpose. The Montgomery Group had been built to create homes, communities, spaces where people could thrive. At its heart, it wasn't so different from the healing work she'd dedicated herself to. Perhaps there was a way to honor both paths, to bring her therapeutic insight to the business world her father had navigated so successfully. I think I might surprise us both, Dad, she whispered to the gathering darkness, in the best possible way. 6 months later, Emma stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of the CEO office, watching the city wake up below. She still found it surreal. This space that had once been her father's, briefly Catherine's, and now somehow hers. She'd changed little about the decor, except to add plants and remove the imposing mahogany desk in favor of a more collaborative seating arrangement. A knock at the door pulled her from her thoughts. "Morning meeting in 5 minutes," her assistant reminded her. "Thanks, Denise. I'll be right there." Emma gathered her tablet and her father's watch, now a talisman she wore daily, before heading to the conference room. 6 months into her unexpected role as CEO, she was still finding her footing, but the initial skepticism from executives and clients had largely given way to cautious respect. The management team rose as she entered, a formality she'd tried, unsuccessfully, to discourage. Old habits died hard in a company built on tradition. "Good morning," she greeted them, taking her seat. "Let's start with the Westlake project updates." As the meeting progressed, Emma found herself thinking about how much had changed since that desperate night when Catherine had called her in tears. The legal consequences of Catherine's actions had been significant but not devastating. A plea agreement had resulted in probation, community service, and restitution requirements rather than prison time. The Montgomery name had weathered the storm, partly due to Emma's transparent leadership approach during the transition. After the meeting, Emma had a standing lunch appointment she never missed, regardless of how busy her schedule became. She took the elevator down to the lobby, then walked 3 blocks to a small cafe where Catherine was already waiting. A portfolio of drawings spread before her. "Sorry I'm late," Emma said, sliding into the booth. Catherine smiled, looking more relaxed than Emma had seen her in years. The formal business attire was gone, replaced by casual clothes and a creative energy that seemed to radiate from her. "No problem. I was just reviewing some designs for the community center project." The community center was part of Catherine's redemption path, 300 hours of architectural work for nonprofit organizations. What had begun as court-mandated service had evolved into a genuine passion project. "They're amazing," Emma said sincerely, examining the sketches. "You've always had this talent inside you. It took losing everything to find it again." Catherine replied without self-pity. "Sometimes I wonder who I might have been if I'd stood up to Dad all those years ago." "We can't rewrite the past," Emma said gently. "But you're building something authentic now." They ordered their usual salad for Emma, soup for Catherine, and fell into comfortable conversation about their respective weeks. These lunches had become sacred space for rebuilding their relationship, a neutral ground where they could be simply sisters rather than CEO and disgraced executive. "How's the therapy practice?" Catherine asked. Emma had maintained a limited client schedule despite her corporate responsibilities, unwilling to abandon the work that had defined her professional identity. "Grounding," Emma replied. "It keeps me connected to what matters beyond profit margins and project timelines." Catherine nodded, understanding. "And how's living in the mansion? Still rattling around in all that space?" Emma laughed. "Actually, I'm considering selling it." "Really?" Catherine looked surprised. "But you fought so hard to keep it." "I fought for what it represented. My inheritance, my connection to Dad." Emma stirred her iced tea thoughtfully. "But I've realized I don't need a museum to remember him. And the proceeds could do more good elsewhere. Such as? I've been thinking about a foundation," Emma admitted, focused on mental health support for entrepreneurs and business leaders. The pressures that come with positions like Dad's, like yours was, they're rarely acknowledged, let alone addressed. Catherine's expression softened. "Dad would have dismissed the idea as unnecessary, probably," Emma agreed. "But I think he would have secretly been proud too." After lunch, they walked together to the corner where their paths diverged. Emma back to the corporate headquarters, Catherine to the community center construction site, where she was overseeing the implementation of her designs. "Dinner Sunday?" Catherine confirmed before they parted. "I'm trying a new recipe." "Wouldn't miss it," Emma promised. As she watched her sister walk away, Emma reflected on the fragile but real healing that had occurred between them. They would never return to some idealized version of sisterhood. Too much had happened. Too many harsh truths had been exposed. But they had found a new way forward, built on honesty rather than appearances, support rather than competition. Back at the office, Emma found an unexpected visitor waiting in her reception area. Judge Wilson, looking distinguished as ever despite his advancing years. "Judge, this is a pleasant surprise," she greeted him warmly. "Emma, my dear, I was downtown for luncheon and thought I'd stop by to see how you're settling into Richard's chair." His eyes twinkled with approval as he took in her confident posture. She led him into her office, offering him the most comfortable chair. "It's been a learning curve, but a rewarding one. I have excellent advisors, including Catherine, I hear. the judge commented. Gloria and I had dinner with her last week. She showed us her designs for the community center. Quite impressive. She's finding her true calling. Emma agreed. The architecture program at the community college has already offered her an adjunct position for next semester. Judge Wilson nodded approvingly. Redemption takes many forms. I've seen enough of human nature to know genuine transformation when I see it. He fixed Emma with his perceptive gaze. And you, my dear? Have you found peace with everything that's happened? Emma considered the question carefully. Peace is perhaps too absolute. I've found understanding. Forgiveness is still a work in progress. As it should be, the judge said. True forgiveness isn't a single decision, but a journey. It requires accountability, amends, and time. Catherine is doing the work, Emma acknowledged. Every day, in ways large and small. And the company? How is it faring under your leadership? Emma smiled. We've stabilized after the initial shock. Retained most of our major clients. The new affordable housing initiative is gaining traction with local government. Richard would be proud, Judge Wilson said simply. Of some aspects, Emma qualified. He might question others. Our new employee mental health program, for instance, or the 4-day workweek pilot we're testing. The judge chuckled. Evolution is necessary for survival. Richard understood that in business, if not always in family matters. As they talked, Emma felt a sense of continuity she hadn't expected, a bridge between her father's legacy and her own emerging vision. Judge Wilson had known Richard Montgomery at his best and worst, yet still found value in the man and his work. It was a perspective Emma was gradually adopting toward her own complicated family history. When the judge finally took his leave, Emma returned to the window, watching the afternoon sun glint off neighboring buildings. 6 months ago, she had stood at the precipice of an unwanted change, forced by circumstances beyond her control to reimagine her life. Now standing in her father's office, wearing his watch, she recognized the unexpected gift within that painful transition. She had found not just a new career, but a new understanding of herself. Stronger, more capable, and more resilient than she had ever believed possible. The anxiety that had once defined her still appeared occasionally, but it no longer controlled her. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, difficult decisions, moments of doubt. But today, in this moment of quiet reflection, Emma Montgomery finally felt worthy of both her name and the path she was creating beyond it. 1 year to the day after Catherine's tearful 2 a.m. call, the Montgomery sisters stood side by side at their father's grave. The summer morning was bright and clear, birdsong filling the cemetery's peaceful grounds. Emma placed a single white rose on the granite headstone while Catherine added a small architectural sketch, her design for the community center that would open next month. Do you think he knows? Catherine asked softly. How everything turned out. Emma considered the question. I'd like to think he does. That he's seen us both find our true paths, even if they weren't what he planned. They stood in comfortable silence, each lost in private thoughts. So much had changed in a year. The scandal had faded from public memory, overshadowed by newer corporate dramas. The Montgomery Group was thriving under Emma's unconventional leadership, while Catherine had found unexpected fulfillment in returning to her first love of architecture. I have something to show you, Emma said as they walked back to her car. A surprise. Should I be nervous? Catherine asked, only half joking. Surprises had rarely been positive in their recent history. It's a good one, I promise. Emma drove them to a modest building in a revitalized downtown neighborhood. The brick facade had been recently renovated, large windows letting in abundant natural light. A discreet plaque beside the entrance read, Montgomery Wellness Foundation. It's finished, Catherine realized, admiring the clean lines and welcoming entrance. When does it open? Next week? Emma replied, unlocking the door. But I wanted you to see it first. Inside, the space was warm and inviting, a deliberate departure from both clinical sterility and corporate formality. A reception area opened into a series of comfortable meeting rooms and private offices, all designed to put visitors at ease. It's beautiful, Catherine said, genuinely impressed. You've created something special here? We have, Emma corrected, leading her sister through the space. Your design consultations shaped the entire layout. The foundation had been Emma's vision, funded by the sale of their father's mansion, and focused on providing mental health resources to entrepreneurs, executives, and their families. It represented a bridge between Emma's therapeutic background and her new role in the business community, a way to honor both aspects of her professional identity. There's one more thing, Emma said, stopping before a closed door. This office is yours if you want it. Catherine looked confused. Mine? But I'm not a therapist or a business counselor. No, Emma agreed, opening the door to reveal a bright studio space with drafting tables and design software. You're an architect. The foundation needs someone to oversee the design of future centers as we expand, someone who understands both the therapeutic goals and the practical requirements. Catherine stepped into the room, speechless. A wall of windows overlooked a small courtyard garden. The space hummed with potential. You don't have to decide now, Emma added. It's just an option to consider when your probation ends next month. Catherine turned, eyes bright with unshed tears. You still want me in your life, in your work. After everything. It wasn't a question, but Emma answered anyway. You're my sister, Kath, the only family I have left. We've hurt each other, disappointed each other, but we've also survived together. That counts for something. Catherine nodded, wiping away a tear. It counts for everything. Later, they sat in the courtyard garden, sharing sandwiches from a nearby deli. The foundation represented more than just a philanthropic venture. It was tangible proof of how far they had come, individually and together. I found something in Dad's papers, Catherine said, reaching into her bag. I was going through the last box from his home office and discovered this. She handed Emma a sealed envelope, yellowed with age, addressed simply, "For my daughters," in their father's distinctive handwriting. Emma's hands trembled slightly as she accepted it. Should we open it? Catherine nodded. It's time. Emma carefully broke the seal and unfolded a single sheet of paper. The letter was brief, dated just weeks before their father's death. My dear Emma and Catherine, if you're reading this, I've left you to navigate life without my guidance. Perhaps a blessing in disguise, as I've come to realize my guidance hasn't always served you well. Catherine, I pushed you toward a path that suited my ambitions rather than your talents. I see now how your eyes light up when you discuss design and structure. The same passion I channeled into business. I'm sorry I didn't honor your dreams. Emma, I underestimated you, believing your sensitivity was weakness rather than the profound strength it truly is. Your ability to understand people, to truly see them, is a gift I never possessed. The money, the properties, the company, these are not your true inheritance. Your legacy is the bond between you. In each other, you'll find the support, the challenge, and the acceptance I struggled to provide. Together, you are my greatest achievement. Far beyond any building I've constructed or deal I've closed. Love each other. Forgive each other. And most importantly, forgive me for my failings as your father. All my love. Dad's silence fell between them as they absorbed their father's words. After a moment, Catherine reached across the table and took Emma's hand. He knew, she said quietly. He understood us better than we thought. Emma nodded, unable to speak past the emotion tightening her throat. All those years seeking their father's approval, competing for his attention, when what he had truly wanted was for them to find strength in each other. Do you think we can? Catherine asked, her voice vulnerable. Truly forgive each other? And him? Emma considered the question seriously. The hurt had been real, the betrayal profound. Yet sitting here in this peaceful garden, in a building dedicated to healing, she felt the weight of resentment continuing to lift. I think forgiveness isn't a destination, she said finally. It's a practice. Something we choose every day, imperfectly, but sincerely. Catherine smiled, recognizing her sister's therapist wisdom. Then I choose it today, and I'll try again tomorrow. Me too, Emma agreed, squeezing her hand. They sat together as afternoon sunlight filtered through the young trees, casting dappled shadows across the courtyard. The foundation would open its doors next week. Catherine would consider the job offer. Life would continue to present challenges and opportunities neither could predict. But for now, in this moment, the Montgomery sisters had found something that had eluded them their entire lives. A relationship built on truth rather than competition, on mutual support rather than jealousy. It wasn't perfect. It never would be. But it was real. And it was theirs. Their true inheritance, just as their father had known, wasn't in bank accounts or property deeds. It was in the difficult, beautiful, ongoing work of loving each other through both betrayal and forgiveness, weakness and strength, darkness and light. As they left the foundation building together, Emma thought about the journey that had brought them here, how a desperate middle-of-the-night phone call had begun a painful but necessary transformation. How sometimes it takes losing everything to discover what truly matters. Ready? Catherine asked as they reached their cars. Emma nodded, looking back at the building that represented their shared future. Ready? Their father's watch ticked steadily, on her wrist, marking time not just in hours and minutes, but in chances taken, amends made, and bridges rebuilt. one precious second at a time.